the 144, chosen of the chosen of the chosen few. You know who you are. I greet you in the love that lights the truth from my heart to yours. I am Celestial Earth in this divine energy essence of it all. As usual, reporting to you live from nowhere other than 5D, the fifth dimension, the place to be. Transit, you and me. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Welcome to those who are here, those who've already been here, roaming around. Get comfortable. Yes, it looks different from 3D. This is 5D. All right, so as usual, of course it's gonna look different. It ain't 3D. We ain't in Kansas no more. Like, we gotta be walking around like Dorothy right now. This is not Kansas no more, Toto. No, it's not. You on a different yellow brick road. It's time to push the timelines to step into your higher dimensional soul, self, all of that that we're stepping into. All right, so as usual, I'll bring you the news to infuse if you so choose to infuse with that light. If not, you refuse, which means prepare to get fried on the grid. And it's a lot of people getting fried right now, like burnt, crisp, fried, and they don't know why, because they don't know themselves. As I always say, no man knows the hour. And the reason why no man knows the hour is because they know not themselves. Know thyself so that you can know the hour in which evil lurks, or I should say opposition, the database, the parasitic energy, archon energy, whatever it is that you want to call it. Oh, they getting real desperate right now, right? And so what I want to speak to us about is ancestral knowledge, ancestral work. If you're doing any ancestral work, then this is for you. If you feel yourself being called into it, let me share something with you about the ancestral work that we must needs know. And especially for those of you who are going to be aligning with me in this journey, in the next retreat that we're having next year, that is about the ancestral passage. It is a retreat. Peace, peace, soul. Welcome. Thank you for bringing some of that sun with your soul, right? Bring me some of that solar rays. And I invite you all to please continue to send me love, light. Any of you who, if my mind crosses your path, send your love, your light, whatever you can send, because the work is thick. I am cutting through a thick coat of grass over here, opening the way, not just for myself, not just for my own family line, but also for others who are doing their ancestral work and need to cut through that thick coat, that thick grass, right? So what I want to say about the ancestral work, mind you, the ancestral passage has to do with soul work. It's every bit of soul work, and that's why the workshop is going to be that extension, be able to expand your consciousness on multiple levels. This aspect of it, the ancestral part, is something that we really need to pay attention to, right, in our line. Hold on, getting a call. Let me decline that. All right. And I want us to understand this about our ancestors. See, a lot of us, one of the things is the living tends to hold on to the ancestors the way we remember it. So I'm going to share with you some of what has been coming up through this process to clarify some understandings that we must know about our ancestors, right? One of the things is the way that we remember them is not the way that they always want to be remembered. The way that we hold them, little do we know, we hold their vibrations hostage, so to speak, according to the way we hold them in our memories. Memories are everything. We are memory cells. We are one big memory complex. We are here to be a part of the remembering because we're born into a sea of forgetfulness. So we must understand that the memory cells are very, very important, and the way we hold others in memory, because remember, power, thought is power. As a man thinketh, so is he. So that means we are the thinker that thinks the thoughts that creates the things in our world. So I say that to say this: how we hold people in our memories, in our thoughts, in our feelings is how we hold the vibrations for them, right? And there are multiple dimensions. So why I'm saying this, because as we do ancestral work, those of us who are what we call generational curse breakers and things like that, we're doing much more than just breaking the curse. I want us to really understand, and I'm going to explain to you from a point of view that I've had a visit from an ancestor on the other side. I'm telling you something that I know that is coming from them on the other side, right? That there are negative imprints. I want us to understand, listen to me carefully, because this is convoluted a little bit. It's part of the convoluted universe. It's part of the multidimensional existence that we all are. And that if you understand that you're a multidimensional being, you don't exist in one place at one time. So as you transition, right, there are particles of you that remain behind in the imprint of your life. It's almost like footprints, right? So you leave an imprint here, and that imprint is, whether negative, good, or whatever, that imprint is what is here, and the imprint is what we, the living, walk into or carry on or things like that. And so when they cross over, it's for us to understand that they carry with them. We all have our own soul, our own karmic soot on our soul, and things that we need to lift off of our soul. So when they go on and they transition over, if the living is still holding them in a negative karmic imprint, it is harder for them to transition on the other side. So what helps them, and I'm saying this for those of you who are can understand this and who are into ancestral work, what helps them is when you understand who they really were. Do not glorify any negativities. We have to highlight it, identify it, make the corrections, and release them from it. We're also not to hold them in a negative light, meaning in unforgiveness and judgment. We are to know the wrongs that they have done and make the corrections in the energy of it and honor them in that light. Send them in the white light, but you have to break it. We cannot continue to live in their negative imprint in the name of memory and think that we're helping them. I'm saying this to you all because I'm telling you something that I know. Because on the other side, there is one who was speaking to me. I have a particular relative who was very dark, right? And on the other side now, he is in a dark place, and he's on the other side in the ancestral realm. He's having a hard transitional time, and I mean even into the next life. I want us to understand that, because some of them go on and they're reborn again in the next life, and what the descendants are doing in their previous life can also be holding them back, or it can thrust them forward. So what do I mean by that? Let's say the ancestor died. They did a lot of wrong, as like in my case, like I'm saying, and they want to transit, they want to let's say reincarnate and come back. They're going to have a hard time in their reincarnation because they're living out the soot and the negative imprint in their soul. And not only are they still living out that karmic soot and working on that, but their descendants that they left behind in that imprint, if they continue to live in that negative imprint, it also hinders them because it keeps holding that vibration. It's like you trap them in that vibration. So even as they move on to the next lifetime and they're doing whatever they can in that lifetime, they can only do but so much, and they're held back by those of the living who continue to hold them in that negative imprint, right? And in the opposite, right? Greetings, C. Marie. I see you. Ashe, Ashe, Mac. And for those who, let's say on the good news, right? Because I have had an ancestor come back recently. All of this is recently. In the past couple of months, the ancestral realm has really opened up to me differently. I've had one ancestor that did come back that let me know that, and don't ask me how this happens. As I said, this is part of the convoluted universe. But she has come back and let me know that yes, she is reincarnated in the next lifetime. She's already here again. That means she's somewhere existing in this realm already again. And yes, that the things that I do, because I'm a major generational curse breaker, I'm a major chain breaker just by doing the soul work that I do. So when I clean my blood, it connects to her blood and it helps free her as well, especially when I keep her in mind in that way. And so she has shown me that yes, the work that I do continues to help her in that next lifetime that she is now currently in. I want y'all to hear this, because this is the convoluted universe. This is how it is. There's multi dimensions of all of us. So even though your loved one may have passed away, they also reincarnate already in the next lifetime. Some of them, not all of them. Everyone's time, everyone's mission is different. It depends on their mission. It depends on what they're doing. Some may have reincarnated already, some may not, right? So the one, let me go back to the ancestor that I have that was a recent, death about maybe 2 years ago. He has not reincarnated yet. And from what I'm understanding, it's going to be harder for him because there is a tremendous amount of negative imprint that he has left behind. And so what's keeping him in the dark places, it's like he cannot find a path of light. And you know why? Because everyone in the living is still holding him in his negative imprint. His fault, he made the choices, but it does not help when those of us who are left behind are still choosing to remember them the way that they were and to glorify them the way that they were. So for example, and this is the two things that I've seen happening with that, right? Some may do it and have an excuse, right? Some that are in the living may still say, well, so-and-so lived like this, so I got to honor them, right? I got to glorify their name. They make it an excuse for them to still live in the foolishness, and they're doing it in the name of that person. They're doing it in the energy of that person, and especially if you are blood related to that person. Blood makes a big difference because there's proximity. There are codes that in our blood that keep us all linked in a certain way. The God encryption, right? So if you are related, there's this proximity too, that you are more susceptible to walking in their imprint. And these are the dangers, right? And so that's the second one reason, let me stick to this. One reason may be when they're using it as an excuse to continue to live in the folly. Another reason why some may still glorify that ancestor, that past, that didn't do so well, is because they're hurt, and in their own hurt and their own guilt because they lost that person and they didn't make the right connection, whatever their reasons are, but because they are missing that person so much, they want to live in their memory, good, bad, or ugly, and they want to live the way they remembered them while they were living. And that's not helping that ancestor because that ancestor made a lot of mistakes. So you can't just hold them to that. You can't just continue to say, I want to remember them this way because this is what they used to do. Let's say they was a flaming drunk. You can't just say, well, I'm going to drink all the time. I'm going to be a flaming drunk because this is how I remember them. This is what they loved. Just because it's something that they love and just because it's something that they did does not mean it's okay for you to continue to carry it on. You're actually doing a disservice to them and to yourself. I want us to understand that in order to do this ancestral work, it is remembering the ancestors, but it's also holding them accountable. It's identifying where they were wrong, and a lot of our ancestors were wrong, and a lot of us are here to make the corrections where they were wrong. So wherever they were wrong, you are to correct it, not walk in it. By walking in it, you continue to solidify it. And let me tell you who's susceptible to it. So if this is you, or if you're around this, look out for these things. Those who do not take care of their wounds, right? For those of you who've been with me, you've heard me talk about demons. Demons are only unhealed wounds within you, right? So as many unhealed wounds you have is as many demons that you have, which means you're an available vessel, which means you can become an agent for the database at any time against anyone. I want us to understand that. It doesn't matter who it is. Even within your own family, you will go against your own family unconsciously, subconsciously, and not even know it because of the wounds, as I call it, the bullet holes that you're filled with, right? And so the thing to know that is very important and what I'm witnessing here, because here in this land, it's proximity. I'm in my ancestral land. So the stakes are high. and everything that around, it's like I'm seeing it so clearly. And one of the things that I see is very important to note. This is how it can get into you. So, for example, if there is a home, if there is a house or a family home, case in point, mines, and there is some soot, some karmic soot that is left behind by a terrible ancestor that did nothing but badness, that energy needs to go somewhere. I want us to really hear this one. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. So when a vessel is losing its life, when this family member was on his deathbed and losing his life, that energy needed to go somewhere. Where do you think it's going to go? It's going to go to the closest available vessel that it can. So that means those who are in the house, living with him, caring for him, if they're not careful, they take on his negative energy. They take on everything, that energy, that negative entity, that database, that parasitic energy that took his soul wants somewhere to go. It needs a new host because the host that it had is dying. So it is desperately, remember, desperate energies do desperate things. So it is desperately seeking to implant in another host. So if you're close to them, and especially if you're blood and you have unhealed wounds, it is an open avenue and it will seep into your soul. It will infiltrate your soul, and you will then take on the energies of that entity. That entity that was invading that host begins to now invade the other surrounding host, and they don't even know it. They don't even see it. This is the ancestral work that continues to be done that people must pay attention to. So those who were still living in this house at that time, they took on those energies. Now, this is the next degree. Beyond those who were around, if anyone comes after, because there's a serious negative imprint that is left within the house in which that ancestor resided, especially if it's a particular part of the house that they really stayed in the most. The energy is heavy there. You should not let anyone stay in that room. We need to return to our old ways of releasing the soul. So for those of you who've never heard of like a 9 night, these are things that our ancestors did. And it's not just for party, it's not just for show, it's not just for everyone to get drunk. It is an actual event where you are to help this energy transition. The 9 night is where all the family members are supposed to come together for 9 nights after the death of that person. And on the 9th night, you are supposed to turn up their bed. Everyone who brings food, but you're supposed to talk on the memories of that person in a way where we're releasing them. It should be fond memories, and if it's memories that are bad, bring them up too. But it is to bring them up, not to hold that energy in judgment, but to bring it up so that it is brought to realization, so that there can be some correction, and so that those who live on and around can continue on in the correction and still have love for that person that passed over. It is not to hold judgment, but those things need to come up, as well as living in the good memories that helps them transition as well, right? And then when you turn the bed up, some people even burn the bed, whatever you need to do, but it is about releasing them from the intimacy, because the bed represents intimacy. So it is releasing them from the intimacy of the way that they lived in this life, right? And whatever that is, whoever held intimacy with them, it is to release them, it is to let them go and release them from any negative holds, right? Forgiveness. If you're talking about them, talk on things of forgiveness, releasing and letting go and sending them in the best possible light. But the most important thing is doing things different. Doing things much more different. Peace, love, and light. I see you, Tyrone. What's happening? What's happening? Sister, a lot is going on. So I'm just sharing the ancestral information because that's a lot of, like, I'm here pioneering it for you all. I'm saying, like, for those who will be following up in the retreat next year, I'm really here like grassroots on the ground, and I'm doing it personally through me, and I see why spirit has me doing it. so that it is cutting through and making the way and helping, so that when others come through, they'll be able to understand this ancestral trauma and that and what it brings up, because it does boil the blood in other relatives, and it will have other relatives seek after you, want to put out your light, because they do not like it when you come shining your light. Then it agitates their dark places, and especially if they're involved in the negative imprint of that particular ancestor, they don't want to release it. That energy doesn't want to release them. So this is what must needs be done. A lot of us think that we must hold on to certain old things of ancestors, and we have to let it go. They do not need us holding them in that negative light. You are actually doing them a grave disservice. Not only are you holding them back, not only are you holding them in a negative light, but you're also holding them back in the future. When they reincarnate, it also makes it harder for them, because you're constantly walking in their negative imprint. We have to change this thinking, where when someone passes, we think we got to glorify everything about them because now they're gone. So now you miss them. I understand. But we can't glorify their wrongs. We can't okay it. Even if you're not glorifying it, you cannot make it okay just because they passed on. We still have to correct it, and we are responsible for doing things differently. Clear out the energy. If it's in your home, and if you see the next generation coming up and acting like that, you have to nip it in the bud. You have to let them know that they can't exist where you exist. It is not allowed. Do not allow them to continue to proliferate. And I don't know what other word to say, but to continue dragging that ancestor. Essentially, that's what you're doing. If you feel like you're doing justice, you're not. You're dragging that ancestor, right? Some of us, you may have to turn that ancestor's picture around. I had to do that. I was guided by them to do that. That as I went through and saged and burned out the house and everything, I was instructed to turn that ancestor that gave so much problems and caused so much karmic soot on the collective family. I was instructed to turn their picture around, because we are not to be glorifying them in that way. And if others are in there doing it, then we need to turn their face from them. That's what I was getting. Turn their face from them, because they need to detach. And so what happens is, because they're an open vessel and they don't know themselves, then they're open for that imprint. So as they walk through the house, guess where that imprint is going to go? That desperate energy that's looking for another host, it's going to infiltrate. And it's going to go. This is why we got to protect the children. We got to teach them. When I say protect them, I mean teach them. Teach them so that they're not an available vessel for these ancestors' imprints that were left behind that no one corrected. And then they seep into their souls. Right? And see, there's a difference when it's like myself. I'm a corrector. I'm going to correct the problem. If you're not vigilant in making corrections, then yes, you need to really teach the children so that they don't have all these unhealed wounds, so that they're not an available vessel for the parasitic energy, so that they're not a what do I call it? A hospitable host. There we go. They need to be what's the opposite of hospitable? I always say it. I'm not hospitable. I am a vile or volatile. Like, I'm a hostile environment. There you go. I always say that the divine energies have me in that way, where I'm a hostile environment for any negative energy. They cannot reside here, because constantly I do my soul work. So this is why it's important that you constantly do your soul work. You're constantly slewing your own demons. And that is how you're moving. It's washing. Like what I'm doing here is basically, as I said, a spiritual dialysis, where I'm washing the blood. I'm literally washing the blood codes and removing this ancestral soot from my soul. And also being non-judgment and having care for those ancestors that did transcend, good, bad, and the ugly, and knowing what light to hold them in. If your ancestors were wrong, please correct it. Please know. I don't think that because they're past, it's too late to correct. When I say correct, I mean correct the behaviors within you and those that are around you. Do not accept anyone in the family that is highlighting and proliferating their dysfunctions. Put the boundaries up. Set the boundaries. The ones of you who are leaders, who are spiritual leaders, you are spiritually responsible for, let's say, the collective consciousness of the family. So do not accept anyone's malfunctions, regardless of what the rest of the family may be doing. We have to have those boundaries. And that's the best way we're going to be able to those ancestors and helping them cross over, not by keeping them in the same memory and in the same imprints. We have to shift those energetic imprints. Basically, that's what we're doing. When we make the corrections, we're shifting the energetic imprints. We're correcting the behavior. We're admitting that this is not to be glorified. I love you nonetheless. I send you in the white light. I send you in the best possible light. But this has to be corrected. And if anyone is mimicking that behavior of that ancestor, we have to shut it down. And do not allow it in your premises. Do not allow it in your home. Do not put yourself around it when you go to family functions. We have to separate ourselves from it and let them know that you're that serious. I will not tolerate it. And let them know why, if they can understand. Most won't understand it, but this is part of the ancestral work. So I just wanted to share that with you, because a lot of us that are doing ancestral work don't realize how deep it really goes. It's not as simple as just putting up an ancestor altar and putting up pictures. You may be putting up pictures of ancestors that can't help you because you're not helping yourself. And because others in the family are still holding them in that negative light, so they can't help you, right? And when we do this, when we make these corrections, we open the doorways, not just for us, but we help them so that they can help us. We open the pathways of light so that they can help us even more, because of what we're doing, because of being true to the love that lights the truth. Right? And honoring the ancestors' needs. It's what they need. It's not what you think they need. See, the living tends to be very selfish, and we want to live the ancestors' way. We want to live the way we feel like they should be remembered, or that, and that's incorrect memory. Remember what I said earlier. We are memory cells. We are a memory complex. We are here to be a part of the remembering. So how is it going to be when we hold the memory of those ancestors, that it's all a connection? It's not about relation. It's about a blood connection. It's about communication through the blood. It's deeper than you think. It's deeper than them just being your auntie, your uncle, your grandma. It's deeper than that. There is a blood link, because there is a connection. There is a communication that you are having one onto another just through the blood. And the more, there's a such thing as proximity. So the closer you are in the blood, the more susceptible you are. Like I said to you about my family member that was passing, whoever is closer in blood is an easier target, especially if they have unhealed wounds even more. So even if it's a distant relative, like in this case, I can tell you that there's a distant relative, but he's an easier target because he's so filled with bullet holes. He's so filled with unhealed wounds. He has more unhealed wounds than the others that were living here with the dying relative. So he's so open that he picks up everything. He's so inundated with that negative imprint. It's like, who opened the floodgates and let them in? So it all determines, it all depends on the blood link, how close in the blood, what I call energetic proximity, blood proximity, as well as how available you are according to your unhealed wounds. The more unhealed wounds you have, the more available you are. You're like a walking dummy. You're like a walking target. Easy for the parasitic energy to jump right into you. And with your ego, you're going to believe that it's you. I'm speaking to those out there, not me, not you light bodies and light warriors. I'm talking to those lost souls. And they think that they have control, right? So I say all of this to kind of remind us about the ancestral work. To look deeper into it, it's not as simple as just putting up an altar. We have to be more responsible and understand the multi-dimensional complexities of our existence as a memory complex being and what we're here to do in this ancestral work. And yes, it helps you ascend in your soul. That's why I'm taking the ancestral passage. It helps to unlock codes in your blood, and you help yourself and you help that ancestor as well. Ashe, Ashe. Any other comments, any questions? Anybody have anything about, and is there anyone here that is doing any ancestral work? Let me know. See Marie, I see you. Diamond, peace, love, and light. Diamond, is anyone here doing any ancestral work? Just curious, because this is it's a lot of this going on, and that's why I felt the need to share the information, because the spirits are talking. Tyrone says I pour libations. Libations are good as well. You can pour libations and call out to the ancestors, call out to the ones that you know that you want to help you. Call in the light for the ones who need the light. Another thing you can do is pour rum. You can get like straight rum, pour rum on a floor, on a surface, and light it. Light it and speak words as whatever spirit has you to say to consecrate the space. If they had a room in your house or something like that, to consecrate the space, right? You can also burn it out, to burn out any negative imprints and leave people out of the space. It's dangerous for them. If you know those who have a lot of unhealed wounds, don't let them come into that space where that ancestor was. I know it might be too late for some people. For some, it may not be. If you're going through a transition right now, just kind of look at that. If you have the upper hand and you can prevent it, I would say those who you know have unhealed wounds, try to keep them out of the place where, or the residence where that ancestor passed, or in their room, in their home, especially in their room specifically. Try to keep them out of the room, because that imprint still is there. You're going to have to really clear out that imprint and that energy in the room, so that until it's clear, and you will know when it's clear. You'll have to ask, speak to your ancestors, but open the way, keep it blocked off, clear it out, and do not let anyone come in, especially if they have unhealed. That relative. Y'all know we all got that relative that they do the most. They got them unhealed wounds. Do not let them come in the room. Unhealed wounds, do not come in the room. And try to keep them out of the private quarters of where this person frequent the most. Wherever they frequent the most, that is where their imprint is the heaviest. All right? So look into all of that. What else? Who is saying so? Ashe. Terry, welcome. And read on them consistently. Read up on them. Know the history of them and understand where it is they're coming from, so you can understand what it is that you need to do. So this ancestral work, we gotta look, it's getting dark now. I gotta roll up my sleeves. It's stuff that we gotta really pay attention to. Let me try to keep it. There we go. I'm trying to keep the light. All right, so I'm gonna close out with that. So any of you that are going through that, this is what I can give you about the ancestral work. Go to your own ancestors, ask them what they need. Be specific. If you're asking for help, be very, very specific. But don't just go to ask like what you need. Ask what you can do for them. Ask what they need. If there's anything you can do for them to help free their spirit and their soul, so that they can even if they're already reincarnated, you help them as a descendant in that next lifetime. And then they can in turn help you as well. You know, as you call upon them, they can help you because they're more free. They're not as bound to the negative imprints that they left behind. So I ask us to please remember that. Let's not keep them bound in these negative imprints. Let's do better. If you're truly doing ancestral work, we have to undo a lot of the crosses that they have done, right? So with that, I love you all. I share this ancestral wisdom as the wind and the ancestors are in the wind around me. Please remember to listen to the wisdom in the wind and the ancestors in the wind. And until we all meet again, let me close out. Each one, reach one, teach one. If you don't know where to start, start in your big, beautiful heart right here. Shine your light from the inside out and be the candle that lights the next one and the next one and the next one. Peace, love, light, ancestral wisdom, light warriors, unite. Peace.